Welcome to Between the Cracks, the podcast where we do casual conversations around tea. My name is Dart, and today I'm joined by...
Hello, it's Derek from Our Teaware and One River Tea.
We have 3 segments today in the warehouse. I kind of lied. Our main topic for the day is teapots that are as smooth as ice. And then finally, with what we're sipping, normally we just do a tea that we like, just one specific tea that we've been sipping on. But Derek actually has one for him and me where we can share the exact same tea. So let's get into it. So I lied to everyone on Black Friday, but it wasn't on purpose. So I told everyone we were going to have more teaware for the blackout than for the next 6 months of teaware. And I'm sitting here with over 25 pieces of teaware, which is as much as we released on Black Friday. And we have 2 more orders coming. I think it's something like 50 or 60 different pieces of teaware on the way.
Yeah, this next order is low-key giving me a little anxiety. Like the amount of pieces we have coming in, the amount of studios, just the volume. This is, the biggest order yet.
But there's a few reasons that it kind of became necessary when we were doing our year-end review, which led to just procuring a lot more teaware. The first thing is we've had 5 different tea spaces already reach out to us to get their starter sets going. So they're wholesale orders of them starting their first tea space, and we've been able to outfit 5 of them. I don't necessarily know how other tea or teaware companies go, but I feel like in 1 year, already having outfitted 5 different places is kind of crazy. But we need to have the stock here that we don't sell out when we do these orders.
Yeah, I think that's another really huge thing that is a benefit for us is having the stock in America. But that just means getting more stock over the seas and on the boat and stuff like that. Because when you're opening a tea house and you just want, half a dozen teapots and gaiwans and you want them next week, we got it. Otherwise, it's going to take 3 months.
And honestly, for me, the individual sales are really rewarding and connecting with people online is really rewarding, but I want to build community all over the US. And so hearing that we're able to come in and impact not just our local space, not just my local space in North Carolina, but all over the country, that's the dream.
It also gives us a lot more incentive to really source high quality stuff. That way, when we know that these pieces are going out all over the country to different tea houses, we can be excited, we can be confident with it. And so it's really cool seeing a piece that we love and then thinking about it being used more in a commercial setting, more in a tea house by other people. It's really cool to see kind of the lives the teaware takes on.
Yeah, and I think it's quality at every price point. I think it's overperforming teaware is really important because yes, anything above $100 is going to be really nice, but especially for new spaces, they need, more accessible teaware to be able to share with people in the beginning. So, and I think we're doing a really good job, especially with the order that we're procuring right now, the one that'll go out in a couple weeks, with getting overperforming cheaper teaware as well.
Yeah, I think finding overperforming tea and teaware is just always the name of the game. That's why I'm living in China sourcing tea and teaware. Going through Yunnan and looking for pu'er, we're always trying to find that magic tea garden that has inexpensive tea, but has a really, really high reward. This is the Bangdong, this is the Kuashan, this is a lot of the magic drought cake, the hummingbird cake that I found in Linsong. We can do this with teaware, and it doesn't mean the quality is lower. It just means the price is lower.
But it is a challenge. There's a bunch of teaware that we find that is cheap and is cheap, right? It's cost little and it's not good. I'm going to do a quick overlay while I'm saying this sentence of the 20-something new pieces of teaware that we have available. But Derek and I are just going to talk about our top 3. In no particular order, Derek, what is your number 1 of 3?
Number 1 of 3. You said no in particular order, but these Juren bays from Yuechao, especially the darker, rougher ones, I think they're so cool. This one that I've been using, I feel like it's changed color a little bit. Mine's turned a little more red the more I use it. I've been using this guy since we put in this order, which was about 3 months ago. How long was that?
Yeah, about 2-3 months ago.
It's my cup right now. It's all I've been using, really.
This is really hard. I've only had a day with each of them.
Yeah. The test tube.
Yeah, the test tube. So hear me out. We didn't like the old pour cups that we had, the old basic $10 glass pour cups that we had. There was a lot of inconsistencies in the glass. And so we wanted ones that poured better and were a little bit nicer. And so we got these 2, the Cinderella and the test tube. And the reason that I really like the test tube, everyone has this, and it's a really, really good pour cup. You can't beat it for $10. But this one is all utility. This one is like flair and pretty and a little bit more elegant, hence Cinderella. But I just love the fact that this has a wide base. Like, it just feels so usable. I love it.
Yeah, no, I love. It's interesting too, seeing the different variations. So mine's a little taller, yours a little fatter. I really like that lower build. So I think yours is really cool. I'm excited to carry those. And like you said, it's that utilitarian counterpart to some of these nicer picks, which leads me into my number two. My number two is this honeycomb.
The honeycomb.
For me,
gorgeous.
I've had this one for a long time. Like, I've been using it personally for a really long time. I take a lot of product photos with it when I want to get the liqueur, because if I get really close to it, it just looks like a gem. Love this pour cup.
So cool.
What's your second?
My second pick, it's kind of weird. Again, going with another factory one.
Ooh.
This set. So I just did a reel about how much I hate starter sets, travel sets. It's totally true. And the reason is the sets that you get for $30 to $40 in a travel set perform poorly. They look cool. They have some cool coloration, some cool glaze, but they just pour bad. And for me, the teaware has to elevate your experience. And so when Derek and I were together in Kansas a few months ago, he brought just a really basic, nice white porcelain gaiwan with 3 cups. And I got to thinking, and I was like, do we need it to be flashy? And I don't think we do.
So what's in this box? This starter set, if you will.
The design for these bags was really important to me, the traveling and not needing like any additional towels or anything like that. And it's just a simple white porcelain gaiwan in this one, in this bag. And then in the other one, it has a pour cup with 3 cups, but it also has a bag like this to hold it. And it pours beautifully. It's simple. It's elegant, but I would much rather take this with me on the go if I'm traveling somewhere than a travel set that looks cooler but doesn't pour and spills all over the place.
Getting into my third piece, this is a piece I actually have not handled, I haven't touched, but it was one of my most exciting pieces when I first saw Huang Laosher's studio in Qinzhou post this teapot. I was in love. And I was like, I want that teapot. Give me how many you can. This is the Mongol drum. And I think it's one of the few, there it is. It's one of the few niching teapots we have that is fired in this cinnabar, this red color. And one thing that I haven't even gotten to experience is it seems really light.
Oh yeah, it's super, super light. We may be talking about Huang Lao's studio for the main theme for the day, but these pots that we got in from him, they were more expensive. And just looking at them, they look like other pots. These are not beginner pots. These are the next level. Like, they're super light, super fine, very thin. Like, it reminds me of Chaozhou stuff, honestly.
That's what I thought. She sent me a photo of her weighing the teapot, and I was like, that's only 60 grams? How much does it hold? And she's like, it holds over 100. And I was like, what? Beautiful gallery too.
For my third pick, sometimes you'll hear me complaining about not liking classic styles. And it's not that I don't like classic styles. It's they're done so much and done not that well that it just doesn't excite me. This is my favorite shisha that I have ever seen. It's Jiangyin Chao. These are the first set of pots that we're carrying with him. Derek has had Jiangyin Chao pots for a while, but this is the first time we have them. We had the Zeppelins, the kettles, but it's just elegant. It's all of the pieces, all of the parts that, yeah, it's just a shisha, but it's not.
It's got soul, yeah.
Look at how fine that rim is. Look at the curvature like along the spout. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible.
For me, it's all in the spout shape that does it for me for that pot. I'm just like, ugh, every time I see it.
Do you have one of those?
I don't.
It's definitely one you have to finesse because of the angle of the spout. You can't just slam pour it. You have to glide into the pour, otherwise it'll chug. But when it does, it has that cool little, like, it goes up and then back down, just like the sunken. Oh yeah, just like the sunken treasure.
Do we have the sunken treasure?
Yeah, I was pouring with it this afternoon. Love this.
So this is also Jiangyin Chao. That's one of his favorites. When I visit him and drink Chaozhou Gongfu Cha with him, that's his exclusively dansong pot. And he's one of those guys, it's like, I brought a bunch of like red tea, white tea, and he's like, okay, we won't use this pot. And I was like, why not? And he's like, well, I've only ever used dansong in it. I was like, okay.
We have 2 more orders that are back to back on the way. So not only do we have more than I thought we would have for the next 6 months, but we have potentially 3 times that much. So honestly, Derek and I still need to figure out how we're going to release stuff, what we're going to do for releases, what we're going to release immediately, and what we're going to wait off on, because there's so many things that we just want to have the time to talk about them and not just release them all. And
one thing that's interesting about doing these extra big orders is we're kind of pushing some of our studios to their limits. We're working with small studios. They only produce so much. There's, a handful of apprentices, a handful of people making the teaware, selling the teaware. And when we say, hey, we need X many pots, they're like, okay. And then we come back 2 weeks later and say, hey, double that. Huang Laosher niching is one of these issues. You want to get into it, Dart?
Yeah, I would absolutely love to. Huang Lao's pots are definitely my favorite, and these teapots are as smooth as ice, buttery, creamy, chocolatey, smooth.
Now that you say smooth as ice, I'm feeling mine. And yeah, there's something to that. Not as cold as ice, but definitely smooth.
No, not as cold as ice. Because Qinzhou has a finer particle clay than, say, Yixing or Chaozhou, it is so smooth. Like when you're turning the lid, it just feels different. It hits different. It's just such a fine particle, smooth feeling. And the same thing in the variants for the lids. Almost all of his pots have absolutely no lid variants except for the extremely, extremely thin ones that he makes.
Yeah, my mom actually broke one of my brother's teapot lids, one of this guy's lids, and she was like, oh, real quick, before he notices, can you ship me a new lid? And I was like, you can ship me the pot back and we can try and fit a lid, but they're made for the pots.
Yeah, some people think that you can perfectly fire a teapot so that the lid fits. It's not true. If you want that perfect lid fit, it has to be ground down. You can see the difference in color right here from underneath. You have to grind down the lid, and that's what Huang Laosha does to get this absolutely perfect fit.
I've seen it like when they fire these teapots, right? They fire it with the lid on it, but the lid is a little too large. Is that right? And so they'll fire it together, and this is how you get the absolute Cinderella fit. And then you have to grind it down even more so the lid fits smooth and perfect.
Yeah, so I know in the US at least, when they fire with the lid on, they put little wads underneath it so that the lid doesn't actually sit in it completely. But honestly, I really don't know. I haven't seen like what Master Huang does, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the video as well.
I haven't seen what Master Huang does, but I know in Chaozhou it's usually with the lid kind of still sitting in there without the wads or anything. Then they'll just grind it down afterwards. But yeah, I think the lid fit variants, and of course it's something you can grind down. You can get this perfectly smooth lid fit action. But when I had one of the Chaozhou apprentices, Cummins apprentices, over to my place, and he was looking through all of my teaware, this is before I really started sourcing high quality teaware in teapots. He looked through all of my teapots that I had collected over the past like 6 years, and he just like touches the lid. He's like, that lid fit sucks. That lid fit sucks. Like, what? Why did you buy this one? I'm like, hey, like there's more to the pot than just the lid fit. But you know how some people, when they look at teaware or ceramics in the West, they'll pick it up and look at the foot right away, because you can see like a lot of intricate detail on like how well did they take care of the foot. His thing was all about the lid fit.
I saw this interesting video about a guy who's an Yixing collector. Regardless of what pot he'd come across, they don't have that glass rod pour, and they don't have that really, really tight lid variance. And honestly, I'm curious, like, is it because we just don't have access to those pots anymore? Or is it a more modern marketing tactic to say, hey, this makes it good because it's very visible. It's very clear that pouring well and a tight lid, obviously it's important to craftsmanship, but I wonder if it's just a modern thing in the last, 30 years, 50 years.
I would say it's new technology. Like we can grind down the lids now. We know how to do it. We know how to fire more consistently. You see these trends in tea as well, where it's like I just did a podcast talking about the wild teas. And like, does wild tea taste better than cultivated tea? Usually, no. Usually wild tea is slightly toxic to the body. It doesn't taste good. And so people have cultivated what they want out of their strains of tea to make higher quality teas. And so you see these kind of developments. And with the advent of new technology for tea, of course, it's, the processing techniques, the machinery involved. For teaware, I'm sure it's consistency in the kilns and the firing process. Like,
for sure,
these are things that are new technologies that are making even better teapots than before.
And it's funny, like talking about like being better than before, more consistent than before. When people talk about like Yixing or like Chaozhou and like talk about specific lineages of clays, the thing is we're actually probably better able to create what we idealize as that teapot than what it actually was or is. And what I mean by that is clay from 400 years ago, even in the exact same spot, will not be the same as clay as it is today. But if we're looking for a high iron clay to pair well with roasted oolongs, for example, to bring out that minerality, well, finding a high iron red clay is actually a lot easier than saying, oh, we're just going to use the clay right beneath our feet, because you're looking for a specific characteristic that we can now cultivate.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The way everything is opened up, transportation, the shipment of goods, and especially, within China and the high-speed rail.
Bro, this tea is so good.
It's really really wild.
I'm gone. I'm very tea drunk right now.
Yeah, I heard you burping earlier. As Tong Tong says, like that's the first sign of tea drunk.
Oh, that may have sounded like a bad moan. That was a good moan.
Let me tell you, I like the 2017 version that we have on the site now way better than this 2019. I feel like this 2019 shows the good quality of the leaves, but the
Yeah.
2017 actually gives you that fermented Anhua feeling, that really mellow.
Well, the funny thing was, I asked you last week. I was like, "Hey, is this the tea that I should buy on the website?" And you're like, "Hey, drink the one from the podcast." And I'm like, "Okay, but like, can I just buy more? Like, I know I love Anhua Heicha. I know that I'm gonna like the one that you procure. If I don't care if you like pu'er, I don't care if you know what pu'er is. If you want to try a tea that has a deep, complex experience, but a light to medium body, not a super heavy body that just keeps packing and will get you there, go check this out. All right, what are we talking about? I'm so tea drunk. I like actually completely lost the rail here.
Yeah, we're on Huang Laosher. We kind of
Yeah.
talked about his studio, his niching teapots, and then we took a tangent on the lid fit.
Okay. So let's get back to something that's actually really relevant to both Huang Laoshe and us this last year. We're a teaware company. We put teaware first, but we haven't been able to actually procure that much, or we weren't, a year ago, because we needed to kind of get that momentum and get that growth. And we're seeing that now, as we talked about in the first segment with all the teaware. Huang Laoshe also got his city level mastery last year, right when we met him. So he was transitioning to his next level right as we were transitioning to our next level. And whether you want to call it that Yuanfen, as Derek loves to talk about, right, the karmic destiny, or if it's a second or third level of luck, I mean, it was really amazing that we just found each other in stride right where we needed to be.
It does seem like we've grown up together these past year, where it's just like, as we're needing
Yeah.
more teapots, he's expanding his studio, he's getting apprentices, he's like working with more people. And yeah, it's so cool to see, like, okay, like we're kind of pushing the limits of what they can make for us, but at the same time we're encouraging them to grow with us as well, where they're like, we need 20
Yeah.
pots, we need 30 pots, we need 40 pots, we need to start making more pots.
We got to go back to the beginning.
How we met.
This started with these cups that we found. So we found him online. We reached out, got his WeChat, how you talk to everyone in China, and started talking. We didn't know what to expect because Qinzhou is pretty far from Jiangsu and Yangzhou, where Derek is. So we knew we weren't going to be able to get to Qinzhou last year. But I really wanted Qinzhou pots, and we just lucked out that it was like the second or third person that we ran into that was just really down to earth. He does some kind of cool, quirky videos, and makes absolutely incredible teaware. But it's funny that it started with these cups.
The irony there is we were looking for a cup from each style of clay, I think, right? And so
Yeah.
we weren't even looking for niching teapots from him. But then something happened with like the shipment that I added them on WeChat. We were talking, and then I'm like, oh, you guys have a lot of pots. Can I try some of these pots? And they were incredible. Meeting online and then seeing like, oh, you have a small studio. How many people? Like 2-3 people. That's awesome.
And speaking of cups, it's funny because when we first started carrying the small 30 to 50 mil teacups, I was a little bit reluctant about it at first. And we're actually going to be splitting up on the website tea bowls and teacups with this order because we have enough differentiation. And I want people to be able to see these wood-fired cups from Yuechao are absolutely amazing. It's 25 to 30 milliliters. It's tiny, but they're absolutely gorgeous. And honestly, it's going to probably make me start using cups more because typically I'm always using not necessarily a jurembe, but like a bigger cup bowl that I can fit 50 to 100 milliliters. But these, incredible.
I think it also goes back to your brewing style, right? Like we're usually brewing by ourselves, right? And so we don't need to put a bunch of tea into a small cup. We can just put it into one single jurembe or one single tea bowl. But yeah, having multiple people and then having those small cups, having like a nice set of those really beautiful dragon breath cups. Dreams.
Honestly, I don't know how many I'm going to take, but I may keep a few. Like, we don't have that many, but like having just one of those would be kind of pointless. Like,
yeah, I think it's kind of true. Yeah, I kept one set of his last wood fire, like Chaozhou teacups. Yeah.
And it's funny because going back to, you were talking about how we were looking for one of each clay. What he's talking about is the Yixing, Chaozhou, Jianshui, and Qinzhou. But the thing is, Chaozhou, Derek lived in Chaozhou for a year, knows a lot of the potters in Chaozhou. They just don't make clay cups, but we do have some clay here. I got 5 pounds of dry Junie. Yeah, I got the Junie. Some of it's I'm not gonna say who. Well, you guys already know Mark. Some of it's going to Mark. And then there's a couple other potters who may be making pots coming out of retirement to make us some pots with Chaozhou Juni. But anyway, whole point was we couldn't get the Chaozhou. In Yixing, all of the cups are not using the same clay that they're using for the pots. It's like colored, just lower. I don't want to say lower quality, but just it's not the same clay. Zhenshui, we just, again, haven't found a great contact. So that completely died. But then we found this amazing set of other wares.
I think that Yixing Nixing comparison is pretty cool because, like you said, with Yixing, they're using different types of clay for different things. There's a lot of attention put on their teapots, their teacups, their teawares. For Nixing in Qinzhou, it's still developing. And so you can get very high quality clay, high quality pieces for a fraction of the cost you would get at Yixing.
And this is really a weird thing that only happens in Yixing. Like nowhere else in the world is the clay worth so much that they would be making fake or bad clay. I really, really cannot stand when people say fake or bad, because it's not fake clay. Yes, they may be using colorants, but it's pretty common all over the world to use colorants with your clay. The faking of it is it's not from the mine or the place that people are talking about, but it could still have those characteristics, even if it is colorized to be more vibrant and kind of be more attractive. But the thing is, nowhere else in the world is the clay so valuable or so sought after that you would do that. Zhenshui, Qinzhou, Chaozhou, even Jingdezhen, like they have plenty of clay. Yixing's the kind of one weird oddball in this situation.
Yeah, so we've been working with Huang Laosher in Qinzhou for so long. I don't even have the full range of teapots here with me, but I think one of his incredible things is the sheer amount of versatility. Like I'm looking at a few of the teapots we have, and they're all so different. Like I don't know any, like you look at, Zhang Yin Chao, you look at Ye Chao, they're doing very similar things with minor deviations. Huang Laosher, he's doing totally separate pots that they don't look anything like each other. It's just wild.
They all have the kind of chunky characteristic to them that actually that's not even true. Not even the new ones. The new ones don't. The Mongol drum and the city bell, they're completely fine and thin. Most of his spouts are thicker like this one, but honestly, I have a few new ones that are different shape. The bumblebee.
Yeah, the bumblebee
has a cone-shaped spout, and I want to carry this as our baseline shisha.
The Easter egg as well. Different spout shape. Oh my gosh, that city bell.
This may be my new favorite Huang Laoshe pot.
Beautiful.
Huang Laoshe is awesome. Let's talk a little bit more technical for a moment because he does a lot of things. The chunkiness is characteristically Qinzhou. He has an ability to kind of go across the spectrum. But there's one thing that Qinzhou does that not really anywhere else does, and that's firing in a way that gets three very drastically different colors. So let's kind of walk through those for people so they can get a baseline of like what does Qinzhou pottery look like. The first one is very similar to a lot of other red clays that we look at, right? It looks, honestly, this one is so thin, it looks very much like a Chaozhou pot. But this is your standard fired in oxidation red clay. Again, finer particle than a lot of the other places. He doesn't have to do as much burnishing to get it smooth. Pretty standard coloration on this. And this is the only one of the color that we actually have. Coincidentally, here's a crazy example, right? So this is Huang Laoshe's pot from Qinzhou, and this is Zhang Yin Chao's pot from Chaozhou.
Oh, we actually towed the line on that one, didn't we?
Hey, here we are. But more iconically, right? More in people's mind. This is the more iconic, that chocolatey look that we expect when we see Qinzhou pots. And they fire it an additional time to get it to this color, and then they burnish it down.
Yeah, that's the color I think of when I think of Qinzhou. When I think of Nixing Tao, it's this copper color. I think there's something luxuriant about it. The darker the color it get, like that black teapot you had, this copper color, it just looks really, really elegant. Especially, just taking photos of them. I'm like always like, ooh, it looks so good in this slide. It looks so good here.
Notably, they're very glossy though. When we take pictures of them, it's almost impossible. Yeah, it's very hard not to get the light reflection. Again, very, very pretty for daily use, but makes it a little more difficult for taking studio pictures. And then finally, there's this dark variant, which is also absolutely gorgeous and iconic. I still feel like very much similarly Qinzhou. Although this honestly kind of starts to look like Zhenshui, right? Like there's this kind of mix and it's like, okay, well, it's not etched, so it's probably not. But the difference between this one and the chocolatey one is just the amount of burnishing that they do, the amount of sanding they do on the outside.
So which one's sanded down more?
The chocolatey one.
So it comes out of the kiln black.
Yeah, it comes out of the kiln dark and black like this. Yeah.
Yeah, can you see evidence of what it would look like if they didn't burnish it down?
Yeah. So if you look, yeah, so one on the inside, but if you look along the rim, you can see that they actually sanded it down right along here to get a better lid fit as well. And if you look,
Ah, there it is.
see, that one's not sanded. They didn't need to because it's a gallery.
Also on the bottom, you can see the, the actual color it came out of the kiln at the bottom.
Yep.
With 3 different colors you can get for any type of teapot, with a master that can make all types of different styles. Like seriously, just looking at these lids, they're all completely different. It's so cool the amount of versatility we can get out of our Qinzhou studio, and that's why we've just been pumping them a lot this year.
Yeah, that's true. But I will say the new pots, they're not necessarily beginner pots. Like these 3 that we just got in, they're very fine, they're very thin, and they require a little bit more of a controlled pour. One of the nice things about all of his other pots, I feel like, is they're chunky, so they're easy to grip, but they're really easy to pour as well. They just have a smooth, straight shot. You can't mess it up. These new ones require a little bit of finessing, but I mean, I love them. They're just not as user friendly for a first teapot, maybe.
Yeah, I can't wait to get my hands on one of them. I might have to buy one.
Oh, poor Derek.
No, I asked them to send me one here in China, but they just sent me a different one instead that we can't talk about yet.
Oh, yes. The mixed clay. Those will be here soon. Those will be here next month.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the tea for today because I prepared a bunch of different packets, shipped them to America, and then I have some of the same exact tea here, so we could be drinking the same tea at the same time, 2 different sides of the world. So, Dart, do you know what tea this is?
Yeah, it was a slightly fermented Anhua Heicha, right?
Yep, from 2019. Slightly fermented is a pretty cool term because a lot of times with these heichas, these dark teas, fermented teas, you're thinking of shopur, you're thinking of something that brews black as coffee, but this is not going to be it.
Nice and light.
Yeah, see that color? That's what we're talking about when we talk about medium fermented Anhua Heicha. And when you drink it, Dart, you'll definitely get a lot of pine sap, maybe some cedar wood, something really, really vegetal, sappy, but not really dark like cooked pu'er.
Are we going to rinse this or no?
Yeah, I'd give it a rinse. Anhua Heicha sits around for a little while. Looks a little different from mine. Yours is a little smaller.
Yeah, mine's I would say almost as tall as it is wide.
Oh, wow. Do you like that?
I do. I love it.
All right. First infusion, mine is much darker. We'll see what Dart's comes out to.
Oh, mine's not that dark.
Yeah, interesting. Hey, yours is still pretty light.
Still
Very
pretty light.
cool. So this is a tea that I've been trying to source for a few years now. And finally, Alex and Xiaoyan made it out to Anhua. And we found some really good teas out there. One of my favorite, though, we found just before that trip. It is a 2017 Anhua Heicha brick. Where this is a 2019, the 2017 gives you a lot more depth. And I think it's all I've been drinking this winter. It's so good. Ooh, okay. This is very different from the 2017. For this one, I get a lot of black pepper. So, do you have experiences with the Anhua Heicha from maybe the White to Tea Tea Club?
Yeah. I have the ones from December. I think there were 3 different grades, but they were all from this year. This one is more delicate, I would say, but also more complex, if that makes sense. Which honestly, I feel like tracks with a lot of your teas. A lot of your teas are like more gentle and delicate. They're not overpowering and overbearing, but there's definitely more like complexity and depth to it.
Yeah, and I think that's why I really like this style of tea and then the other things we've been sourcing this year from Anhua. Because usually the teas I've had from Anhua, they go for this specific taste profile that's a little too heavy-handed, a little too much. And for this one, I really like, as you said, how delicate it can be.
This tea, honestly, Derek, I've only had a few Anhua Heichas, but it's still kicking hard, like Steve 5 or Steve 6, which a lot of them, I feel like the Anhua Heichas, they don't go as long as pu'ers, at least the ones that I've had, right? Like I'll get a pu'er that can go for, 10, 15, 20 steeps, depending on the one. And these have all kind of died in the low, like 5 to 7 range.
Yeah, I mean, the Anhua Heicha, usually they're using a coarser leaf, something that is not as prone to being steeped. A lot of times after 5, 6, 7 brews, you want to boil it. But again, with these teas, yeah, they give out a lot. I think because this tea house we're working with, they're really sourcing artisan grade, artisan level Anhua Heicha, where in China, Anhua Heicha is, it's a very, very, very cheap tea at the moment. And so it's cool to pay the little extra money and get something that's like Let's take this tea and put it to the next level.
I appreciate you sending over some, man, because this is really good. I'm definitely gonna have to pick up some of that 2017, and I'm excited for next time when we got a new one to try out too.
Yeah, the next tea should be really interesting too, but we won't spoil it now.
One ultimatum question for the day: if you could only have one Huang Laoshe pot so far, which one would it be?
Don't do this to me, man. Don't do this to me. You answer first.
All right, I think I kind of already gave away mine. It would probably be the City Bell, just because it's super fine, but also still has the characteristics: really tight, really smooth pour. Just absolutely feels amazing in the hand. But I would say a close runner up would probably be the hot cocoa, which I think is my all around just best. Like, it's very beginner friendly because of the size and feel. And again, all the other characteristics that are similar with him. So those would be my one or two.
I don't really have to think about it too much. I'm using the hot cocoa right now too. This is
Yeah.
this is my go-to pot, and I don't know why. For me, it feels so friendly. It's awesome. It performs really well, but it just looks like a normal pot. Like I feel like compared to all of his other styles, like etching, cool designs, cool lids, like what makes this one so different? I don't know, but it's my favorite.
I like that he did like the Qinzhou take on the Shipiao. He didn't put the 3 feet on it. It's still chunky. He didn't do it super like pointed at the bottom and the base. Like the Shipiao is my favorite classic shape, and I just like the way that he did like the Qinzhou take on it with the hot cocoa for sure.
All right. Thank you guys so much for joining this episode of Between the Cracks. I'm really excited to look at more teaware next time and share some tea.